Get ready for a new day, a brand new day. On this episode, we are going to be discussing the next epic stop in the MCU, Spider-Man, brand new day. So get ready as we discuss small potatoes and big potatoes as Cine James Movie Talk starts now. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Cine James Movie Talk. I am your host, Mr. Cine James himself, and today I am going to be giving my spoiler thoughts on the new MCU movie, Spider-Man, Brand New Day. But before we get into that, as always, you know what to do. If you like the show, you like the content, you're listening to me on YouTube or Spotify, hit that like, hit that subscribe, show me some love, and as always, I greatly appreciate all of your support. As always, before we get into the movie, let's run through some quick stats on this movie because for Spider-Man, Brand New Day, these stats are beyond impressive. So, we are talking about Spider-Man, Brand New Day, released on July 31st, 2026, just a couple weeks ago, with a runtime of 2 hours and 25 minutes. This movie was directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, and this movie had a budget of between 225 million, and at the time of this recording, a couple weeks after the release, this movie currently has a box office of $1.71 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars. That is absolutely amazing, and that is crazy to think. 1.71 billion on the fourth Tom Holland MCU Sony Spider-Man movie. It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely insane. Let's talk about, before we get into the movie also, let's talk about where this movie ranks. Speaking of the Tom Holland MCU Spider-Verse, let's look at where this movie ranks. So as far as box office goes, and we are talking about the 4 solo Spider-Man movies. We're not incorporating Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. We're just talking about the 4 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Coming in at number 1 at the box office is, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home. That had a box office of 1.92 billion. Of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day comes in at number 2 with 1.71 billion, and it is quite possible that this movie, it's very possible that this movie could beat out No Way Home to take the number 1 spot out of the 4 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies for a box office draw. Number 3 is Spider-Man Far From Home. That came in with a box office of 1.13 billion, and finishing it out is Spider-Man Homecoming. That finished out with a box office of 880.2 million. This is Tom Holland's 7th appearance as Spider-Man. Of course, we all know he debuted in Civil War in 2016, and he had appearances in Infinity War and Endgame. We also know at the end, he had a post-credit scene in Venom. I believe it is the second Venom movie. But again, that's probably just a CG version of Spider-Man. But as far as Tom Holland himself, this is his 7th appearance as the web slinger. This movie, we're going to run through just a quick little plot rundown. I'm going to be repeating, so on our tag team show, Super Cinema Bros, with my co-host, The Big Rob Theory, we already did our spoiler discussion on Spider-Man No Way Home. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be repeating here with this, especially the plot breakdown here. But we are going to get my own solo thoughts because I want to chat this up with you all. And once again, this is going to be a spoiler discussion. So if you have not seen this movie yet, put a pause on this, go check the movie out, then come back and watch this video. So this Spider-Man Brand New Day. This movie, we are now taking place 4 years after the events of No Way Home. Peter Parker Spider-Man takes on a new powerful and dangerous threat while still dealing with the hurt of his best friend Ned and the love of his life MJ, still not knowing who he is. As he faces these challenges, he also takes on a fight within himself as his organics take change as he takes on more spider-like features. However, Spider-Man is not alone, as he has help from someone who handles business in a much different way, and that is the Punisher. Spider-Man and the Punisher defeat the threat as Peter looks to build a brand new day with his relationships with Ned and MJ. We jump to a post-credits scene in which shows Ned's Spidey tracker showing Spider-Man on Earth, then in space. What does that all mean? And that's the end of this movie. We are going to talk about that post-credit scene towards the end, but let's go ahead and chat up this movie and share again my spoiler thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day. Let me just go ahead and just say this flat out. This movie's absolutely amazing. Again, as we talked about on Super Cinema Bros, this is the fourth movie, okay, in a quadrilogy. Okay, this is the fourth movie. And a lot of times, not all of the time, but a lot of the times, when we get to sequels in a franchise, the numbers start to dip down. I don't know if I want to say the right word is to say the excitement for the character and stuff starts to go down. But by the time you get to a third movie and a fourth movie, that excitement factor sometimes wears off. You're still there for it, but it's not the same as it was when it was kicked off with the first movie and the sequel. But it is absolutely crazy to me. It's absolutely insane, and it's absolutely awesome that this is the fourth movie, and it is doing insane box office numbers. Just to give some comparisons, and again, we talked about this in Super Cinema Bros, and this is not to throw shade on the DCU at all. This is just to give a comic book superhero comparison. So, Supergirl, that released a few weeks before this, finished out its theatrical run at the box office. I think it was around 126 million total at the box office. Spider-Man Brand New Day on its opening weekend did almost $360 million. $360 million. That is absolutely crazy for a 3-day opening weekend. Okay? This movie has done more than it's absolutely crazy the amount of numbers that this box office has done. If you take, for example, I don't know the specific numbers, but if you take Supergirl, Masters of the Universe, you probably could throw in Mortal Kombat 2. Take some of the other big box office, some of the other big movies from this summer. This movie alone has a bigger box office draw than most of these movies previous combined. That's absolutely impressive. That is absolutely crazy. So we're gonna go through this movie. I'm not actually gonna go through this movie in the order of the movie. I'm just gonna chat up some of the things that I liked about this movie, and we'll just kind of take it as we go along here. I like in this movie how we get the city embracing Spider-Man. I think that is really cool. And to go in with that, I like the relationship that he has with Detective DeWolf. It's kind of almost like a Commissioner Gordon Batman type of feel, and I think that this is really good for where Peter Parker is at in his life right now, with not having Ned and MJ in it, and obviously with the death of his Aunt May. This is kind of like his attachment to the world. This is he almost kind of like a parental figure as well, and I think this is something that's very much needed for where the character is at this specific place in time. I like the other thing. I like the tech that he has. And we were talking about this on Super Cinema Bros. And this is one thing that I got brought up in discussion with people is how is he able to have this tech? And you could say, and this is how I try to look at it, is that even though in No Way Home, he had Doctor Strange did the spell where everybody forgot that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. But we have to keep in mind that a lot of this tech and this stuff that he got from Tony Stark, he got from Happy before the events of No Way Home. And just because Happy and the people around him forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, that doesn't mean the tech goes away. He still has the stuff that Tony Stark gave him. And he's used it to set up his little base to do stuff and everything. And I think that that is really cool. So you have to kind of think about that. Is just because the spell wiped things, like wiped people's memories of him, it doesn't mean that the stuff that Tony Stark gave him is gone as well. So that's what I kind of like to think as to why he has this tech. Um, I like uh I like, there's some things I like in this. I like the Scorpion fight. I like the Tombstone fight, and I like the fight with, I mean, obviously, of course, when we get to talk about it here later, the fight he has with the Hand. I thought that is absolutely, when we get to talk about it, one of the best, if not the best, fights in all of the Spider-Man iterations of all the movies, the Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's, and in the Tom Holland. It's one of the, without question, one of the best, if not the best fight scene, but it's also one of the best fight scenes in the whole MCU. The other thing, so I like those fight scenes. I like the way that they were done. And then, for example, like the Tombstone scene where Tombstone is he has Spider-Man, you know, hanging, like he's got him, he's holding him over the side of the building there. I'm not very versed in all the comic book stuff, but I believe that is an art cover, or that is actually a straight up duplication of an art cover of a Spider-Man comic book. And I think that is really awesome how they incorporated that in this movie. One of the things that I really liked is that, and again, spoiler conversation, is that the villain that he's facing in this, at least at the start of this, we know at the end of the day who the main villain is, but when he starts this up, I like that it is Jean Grey. And when I was watching this, it kind of was, when you see the mind jumping, and I like how they did the mind jumping in this, by the way. It was absolutely fun to watch that. But when you seen that, you're kind of like, okay, as I was watching this and I'm seeing the mind jumping, my mind went, okay, well, what person has the capability to do that? And of course, that is Jean Grey. And when they eventually got to the point where they showed her when she was sitting in the back seat of the car, I knew then this is Jean Grey. So it's really awesome. And again, it's really awesome. And we talked about this. I talked about this in the Doomsday trailer review that we did. We are finally here. Now the X-Men are now in the MCU, and it's so awesome that we are now officially at this point. And yes, I know we've had some characters pop up in some post-credit scenes. Of course, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, we had Patrick Stewart reprising his role as Professor X. And then, of course, I know we had Hugh Jackman, Deadpool, Wolverine. Yes, that stuff is there. What I mean by we are now finally at this point is that now we are getting ready to officially, in this MCU story arc, bringing in the X-Men. And it looks like, from the way Jean Grey was presented in here, this looks like where we're going to get that new version of the X-Men. I guess you want to call it a reboot within the MCU. We know that in Doomsday we're going to get the classic people returning for the X-Men roles in this. We have James Marsden coming back as Cyclops. Of course, we're going to have Rebecca Romijn as Mystique. We've got Patrick Stewart, Sir Ian McKellen coming back as Magneto and Professor Xavier. We know those things, but we are now at the point in the MCU where we are going to get that MCU version of the X-Men. And I think that was really cool. At the end of the movie, we see her on a bus, and when it pans out, I think it's self-explanatory. She's heading to upstate New York to the Xavier School for the Gifted. And that is really exciting, because I remember, again, when years ago, when it was announced that Disney bought Fox, first things that we all talked about was, oh, we can't wait. What is this going to look like now? This is awesome that we are now finally going to have the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in the MCU. But we were still at that point so far away, and we had so many thoughts of what it was going to look like. And then last year, of course, we got the Fantastic Four, and now we are at this point where now all those thoughts and that waiting is finally here, and that's awesome. And it's also really exciting that it was this Spider-Man movie that really starts to bring that more full circle. And I really I'm excited to see what Kevin Feige in the MCU, what Marvel does with their version of X-Men. I am really excited for it. And when they've announced some of the casting decisions with this, I can't wait. I think we're going to be. I think we're going to be in for a fun ride as we bring in the X-Men. I like they had the appearance by Yelena. Of course, they call her Black Widow in this. And I've seen some people complain. I've seen some of the criticisms where they've talked about how calling her Black Widow. But if you remember, that shouldn't be a criticism because in the Black Widow movie, they talk about when these young girls were training, that's their code names, Black Widow. That's part of it. So for her to be called Black Widow, um, and to also be Natasha's sister, I think is fitting. I like where they're going with it, and I like the whole scene. I like the scene with her in her office with Peter, and I like the whole conversation with the whole small potatoes, big potatoes. I like the humor they had with that. But I think it's also funny. I think there was a lot of it to me that was funny because she's telling Peter, he's dealing with small potatoes things, but we forget that, and she forgets that, you know, uh, Peter Parker took on Thanos, and he was in Infinity War and Endgame and dealing with all that. But I like that. I like her chemistry with Peter in this. I like I thought the humor was fitting with this. So it was fun to see her, and I think that I think in this movie we got just the right amount of what we needed of her for this. So I love the appearance. I like the way that they handled VMAX. Obviously, as the movie's going, we're thinking VMAX is going to be something very, very important. Could it be a mutant suppressant? What could VMAX be? And then we just come to find out that uh, as Jean is in the damage control on, I think it's a Roosevelt Island. I think that's where she's at when they capture her, and she's looking up towards the ceiling. She's just looking at the air conditioner, like the air vent unit. And it's vent max, and I thought that was wow, that was a really cool way to kind of they brought the expectations of things up here, and they got us all kind of hyped for what is VMAX, and then it really was just something as simple as the name of the air vent. I thought but the meaning behind it though was very significant in that even though VMAX wasn't really anything, it's the last thing that her sister looked up at before she died. And I think that's very powerful. So I like the way that they handled VMAX in this. One of my criticisms of this movie, I was director Metzger with Damage Control right away. And this may have been different for other people, but for me, right away, I knew he was up to something. He had that stereotypical feel. That was one of my criticisms, that his character was too on the nose, and it was just kind of one of those wait for it moments to wait for him to reveal himself as a villain in this movie. So that's one of my little critiques of it. Another one of my critiques that I had with this was when Spider-Man, and we talked about this on Super Cinema Bros, is when Spider-Man enters the damage control facility and he's going through the little scanning device and it's reading off his bios and it's reading off these things, and then the lady asks him to remove his mask. She clearly can tell, and I heard, and one of the things brought up was, well, how does she know it's Spider-Man? It's scanning him and reading off his biometrics. Okay, and I thought that was a really dumb thing for her to ask him to take his mask off, and they started drawing their weapons on him. And my problem with this is that, let's just say it was going to go that route. We all know that if he wanted to, he could have easily dispatched. There was no way they were overcoming him with that. So I just kind of thought that was I don't know. For me, that was just kind of that's one of my other critiques. I thought that was just a really dumb scene. Thought they could have done that a lot differently. The one thing I do like with this is the way that they played the relationship with Peter and Ned and MJ. Again, this is 4 years after No Way Home, and he is still dealing with that hurt, that pain of not being able to have his best friend and the love of his life in his life, and that they don't remember him. And that, in the way that they did that, I thought was really good, and I thought that the scenes, and we're going to talk about one in particular, but I thought that the scenes that they gave them with this, I thought was really touching. It was really fun, especially for example, I think it's funny. I think it's funny that Ned, he created the Spidey Tracker app, and he is obsessed with Spider-Man. And I think that was a fun way to play into how are things, even though his memory of Peter being Spider-Man is gone. But how are they still kind of keeping things in that rotation with stuff? And I thought that that was a really cool way to do that with Ned being obsessed um, with Spider-Man. I again, we're when we're at the party scene and Peter sees MJ and he sees her with her new boyfriend, and then when he goes out and he's swinging, he has a swinging scene with the flashbacks to No Way Home. I thought that was really good. And something I do want to talk about on this, I think in this movie, I think out of the four Tom Holland movies, this is the best looking swinging sequences through the city. I think this is the best looking one, but I am still going to say this that when comparing to the Tobey Maguire series and the Andrew Garfield series, I still think that the Andrew Garfield uh, uh, movies, I still think that is the best looking uh, web swinging sequences. I still think the Andrew Garfield had the best web swinging views and sequences, but they are really awesome in this movie. And then I also like how they did how they dealt with Peter and the spider DNA taking over more of him. That I think that it was a very smart choice to not do the full like man spider look and go that route. Not saying that I if they would have done that, I think that I think that there could have been a way to do that. But I'm glad that they didn't go that full route, and I like the way that they did it. Um, and especially, of course, when we get to where we're going to talk about that scene with the hand, when he finally is able to put the two together, Peter Parker and the spider, and he's able to put that together. Um, Again, very awesome. But I like overall, I like how they dealt with the inhibitor chip. I like how they dealt with him going through because this movie, one of the themes of this movie is dealing with change, and trying to move forward with those changes in your life, be them good or bad. Still having to understand again is one of the things of with Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, and we still are seeing Peter dealing with and those changes and having, and that's what the spider DNA sequences and him having the spider uh, organics take over more, and when he finally is able to put it together, that is, I think, to me, it speaks to the one of the themes of this movie is being able to embrace and accept change and understanding that you have to make the best of everything you have and move forward. So I really like how they handled that. Of course, the dream sequences with Aunt May, those were really good. Um, I think again, as we've seen in previous movies, the chemistry with Marissa Tomei and Tom Holland in movies absolutely awesome. It's always fun to watch those two on the screen together, and the sequences of Aunt May, and especially when we get to the final sequence where she's talking with Jean, and then of course we get we get Peter sitting here talking with Jean. Awesome sequences, really awesome sequences. I think one of the other good fight scenes in here is when the spider powers take over while he's facing Scorpion, while Jean has Scorpion in her mind control. And then he damages the cop car, almost killing the officer. Again, as he's trying to, he's not handling the spider organics change, and this where again the story talk about the relationship he has with Detective DeWolf, where you can see in this scene she is a parental type figure to him, and it is someone that he does need in his life. And I like how they played her I like how they played her in this, where, she's a detective, and they could have gone the route where at that moment, she could have made Spider-Man, I guess if you want to say, an enemy to the police, but they didn't take it that route. And she, instead of going that route and threatening to apprehend him and do all that stuff, they took it to the route where she, again, the parental type figure, where she's basically telling him, hey, you could have almost done this. You need to get your stuff together. Okay, whatever you need to do to fix it, you need to fix it. And I like how they handled that. Um, I like, again, really cool how they brought back Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo. They brought back Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and I like how now he's a professor. He's teaching, and he's got the Hulk inhibitor on him. I think that is really cool, and I think that was a really cool scene when he's trying to teach a class, but they all want to talk about the Avengers and go through all those things. I think that was really fun, and I like the scene that he has with Peter, where Peter is talking about the inhibitor. Um, and again, it's really cool to see how they're playing this, because again, with people not knowing that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but you still see their familiarity with each other, because of what they have been through before with the Avengers and everything. I like how they play that. And this, when we get to the other amazing fight scene with Punisher, Spider-Man, and Hulk, we get Hulk here. We get, um, I would say, since the first Avengers movie, and I guess you could also say the Incredible Hulk movie. This is where we get the Hulk at his most badass. He looks menacing in this, and he is huge in this. I think it's so neat how to see him, how he starts off as Smart Hulk, and how Jean's controlling him, and then he goes into full rage Hulk. It absolutely, wow, it's absolutely awesome. And again, Mark Ruffalo delivering as Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Um, love the way they brought him in to this movie. Let's go ahead here and let's talk about one of the most emotional scenes and one of the big scenes in this movie, and that is the MJ kiss scene. Um, again, the theater that I was in, uh, and which, by the way, I want to talk about this really quick. So I went to a 12:01 a.m. showing. I went to a 12:01 a.m. showing. Now, when I go, I like to go to later timed showings, but when I went to this showing, okay, I walked in, and the concession line was lined up all the way. So I wanted to get something to drink. So I thought, I'm not going to wait in that line. Eventually, it's going to go away. And so I had, for a 12:01 a.m. showing, there was quite a few people in there. Like, it was quite a few people. So again, to talk about how the how big this movie was, and is, to have a 12:01 a.m. showing, and there's a line out the concession stand, and there's a lot of people sitting in the theater. It was absolutely impressive, and which is going to lead me to talk about something towards the end of this, and it's going to be kind of a question too I'm going to pose for the audience. But anyways, one of the things I like about going to these movies, and again, one of the things I love about cinema, is the atmosphere that you get to share with everybody else in the theater, and that makes the movie experience that much more memorable. And we get to the scene here where they have the kiss scene, and MJ starts to and MJ remembers who Peter is now, and everybody in the theater just it was kind of like this, oh, and oh, this is nice. And then when he hugs her, and you realize it's Jean inside MJ's mind, and she's controlling MJ. um Everyone in the theater that I was in just went, oh, like, it just, the atmosphere in the theater just changed. And it was such an emotional scene, because at this moment you are feeling so bad for both of these characters. Um but you're feeling really bad more so for Peter, because you see the emotion he has. I mean, this is the love of his life. And when she starts to remember again the emotion he has, and then when you see his emotions take over more, when he realizes it's Jean, and he has a hold of MJ over the side of the building. Oh, Man, it was just tugging at you. It was pulling at you with the emotions in this scene. So again, goes to what I said. I think, because that was a question, right? Was how are they going to handle the memory wipe stuff after No Way Home? How are they going to handle it in this movie? And the way that they did it, and the chemistry that Peter, Ned, and MJ, the chemistry that these guys had during it, absolutely, they did it absolutely well. Um, and so then we get to the other scene that I like, where um we have uh Peter as Spider-Man. He's still in full Spider-Man, and he's putting the Lego pieces together with Ned, and they're having the dialogue back and forth, and they're connecting. And then MJ is sitting there, and she drew, like, a very touching scene. She drew that picture of them sitting there. And then it was really fun to listen to them talk about, well, how Ned was describing how he thought that Spider-Man's web shooters worked in the fluid. And again, they did such a good job with playing with the memory stuff on this, because you would say to yourself that, well, he doesn't remember that his best friend, that Peter, is Spider-Man, but somewhere he's going through, he's coming up with these responses because of how he helped Peter in the previous movies and all that stuff. So that was kind of really cool to think about. That was like, how does he's really breaking this stuff down. um and you kind of say, well, there's some parts of him somewhere, maybe perhaps that's that even though he doesn't remember Peter Parker Spider-Man, there's something there that he's saying to himself. For some reason I remember, I because I helped, I did. I don't know if that's a weird way to look at it, but that's kind of what I was thinking as I was watching uh this. um I think that when we talked about this a little bit ago, the fight scene with at Damage Control with Spider-Man, Jean, Hulk, Punisher. And let's really quick, before we get into that, let's talk about one of the big standout things of this movie, and that is the Punisher. The relationship that him and Spider-Man have in this movie is absolutely fun. That opening scene where uh Punisher is he's in his vehicle, and Spider-Man takes the gun from him, and then he turns around and pulls out the same identical gun, and how he stops Punisher in that scene. And then their relationship when he brings MJ to her to kind of like a hideout place, and he asks Punisher to watch her. Just the way Punisher is in this movie, give me more of this. And when you watch the two of them on screen too, you almost want to tell yourself and say, hey, let's have a buddy cop style movie with Spider-Man and Punisher, because give me more of that as well. So I'm definitely looking forward, as we continue to move forward in the MCU. I'm definitely looking forward to more of the back and forth, more of the relationship with Spider-Man and the Punisher. And then, of course, we know at the end, towards the end of the movie, we really get to see that emotion and that relationship with the hospital scene. But we are going to get there here in just a little bit. But let's talk about this fight scene. Um, Again, the MCU delivers that the way that they're able to deliver the fight scenes in these movies, absolutely fantastic. And the best clip for me was the best visual for me was the shot where you had Spider-Man in the middle, and Hulk is jumping over as Punisher's going underneath, and he's shooting towards the Hulk. That whole sequence right there just visually looked absolutely awesome. The fight with Spider-Man and Hulk going down the building, that just wow. Again, we deliver on another awesome fight scene. But in this movie, it is not the best fight scene, um, because we are going to get there now, which is the scene on Roosevelt Island in the prison cell with Spider-Man and the Hand. This sequence, I could watch this fight scene over and over again. And the way that they set it up beforehand, where, so just to kind of go back a little bit, so we go back to the fight scene with Hulk, Punisher, Spider-Man, where they do break into the vault where the members of Damage Control are, where Director Metzger is, but he ends up as Jean comes in, and she's got the mind control of the Punisher, and then he ends up shooting her, rendering her unconscious, um, and then he takes her to Roosevelt Island. They got her in that room, and they're really trying to test the limits of her power. And this is where we get to see the flashbacks of her and her sister, which, if anybody caught that flashbacks of her and her sister, as she's holding her sister's hair scrunchie, the hair scrunchie was that yellow and green, which were the colors, were her colors in the X-Men in the animated series, comic books and stuff. But it's also Rogue's colors as well. So I like how they kind of played with some of those little nods to the animated series and to some of the colors in the comic books. But anyway, so they're testing they're trying to test her powers the same way they did with her sister. And this is where when she leans her head back and looks up, she sees the vent max, and then part of the ENT part is covered, and it shows VMAX, and it's revealed, as we talked about earlier, that VMAX is just the air vent, and that was the last thing. But it's a powerful thing. That VMAX thing is still powerful because we realize that is the last thing her sister seen before she died. So then Jean just loses it, and her power, she becomes stronger, and she really pushes out with her power, and she just wrecks shop here in this facility. And then while she's doing this, she knows that Spider-Man is coming, and she takes over the members of the Hand, and we have this epic fight scene. Again, the choreography in this, the visuals of this, absolutely amazing. And then she's talking to Peter through the Hand, and we see that his he's still dealing with so much in his mind, and then he removes the inhibitor chip, and then the spider takes over within him, and then we get the shot where he is he takes the web and he shoots one of the hand he shoots one of the ninjas up, and right before they're getting ready to get impaled, he stops them. And then when she's basically in his mind, and she's saying, what are you? Are you Peter? Are you the spider? What, yada yada, all this stuff. And he says, I'm both. And his eyes go from straight black back to his normal eyes, and he finally takes control of this power. It is absolutely awesome. And I call it, like, when he's coming down and he does the tornado web thing. Wow, and wow with the scene. Absolutely awesome. Again, I will say this, it is one of the best fight scenes in cinema. It's also one of the best comic book adaptation, superhero adaptation fight scenes, and it has to rank up there in one of the top MCU fight scenes. Absolutely love it. And then, of course, we get to where he finally gets to where he confronts Jean, and she does the whole freeze within the mile radius, and that looked visually cool, where she freezes again within a range, people in New York on the island. She gets Ned, MJ, and there was something as I was thinking with this, and again, kind of something I've seen other people talk about as well, where as MJ is frozen, you see the tear is coming down her eyes and stuff, and then as everything gets unfrozen, and there's a theory that during this, because of the moment that Peter and Jean had, that it is theorized that during this, that she unlocked MJ's memories to bring them back to knowing who Peter is. And could also maybe say the same for Ned, but it's like when you look at MJ's face in that, and they're really zooming in on it, and you see her emotion, it's almost like she's getting these thoughts and her memories replayed back in her head, and that's just overwhelming her. So again, that's I like to think that's what's happening in this, but I've seen that kind of talked about as a theory. I've seen it talked about amongst other people. But we get the scene where she threatens to go into Peter's mind, because if you remember at the earlier parts of this movie, it's tough for her to get into his mind. She can't. And then he welcomes her in, and he tells her to go ahead. And that's where we get that scene where she's sitting down now with Aunt May. And Aunt May's talking to her the same way that she talked to Peter earlier. And then Aunt May goes away, and then she's in that room with Peter, and they're talking. And then as they come out of it, we see the Punisher in a distance, and he's basically getting ready to sniper Jean, because she's got the whole island and everything in a mind freeze. And then as he fires his shot off, Peter's spider sense, his tingle kicks in, and he takes the shot. He spins Gene around, and he takes the shot, and it puts him down. And this is what lands him into the hospital, and we get that visual, which is also from the from what I understand, it's also from the comics where the Punisher is carrying in Spider-Man into the hospital, and of course, while he's in there, uh, again, it looks like, from what I have understood and what I have looked into with this, and what other people have talked about, that this is where Jean is. She's breathing for him, and she's helping him heal. Um, and we get those moments. We get those moments where, when he starts to come to, of all people that's there, Punisher's right there with him. And again, really going to, how they're really showing this relationship here, and which, like I said before, I hope that we get more of that in future MCU movies. I really like having these two, Punisher and Spider-Man, on the screen, and especially right here at this moment where you really get to see their friendship take on more. I really like the way that they set this up and the way that they did this, and it was really cool too to see the picture drawing that MJ did. um, it was sitting right there with all the other cards and balloons. And this is again where we talked about how the city has embraced Spider-Man. Uh, this is such a very touching, and again, it's an emotional scene where when Peter finally comes to, and they devise a way for him to get out of the hospital. Um, and it's an emotional scene, but it's also funny how, as Peter is walking out of the hospital, people say, "Look, it's Spider-Man," and they point up, and it's the Punisher with his mask on, just like jumping around at the window, and he's basically distracting people while Peter's walking. He's walking amongst everybody, and I think the scene is it's and we get this, as he's doing this. He looks over at the little kid, um, and the kid, they do the spider, the web thing back and forth, and I think that was a really touching scene. And again, it just shows uh, how this city and how people really embrace and love Spider-Man, and I think that was really cool. Uh, Again, another emotional scene, but just I think that was a really nice way uh, to in this movie. And again, we also we see MJ sitting back in their spots. It kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier, right? Where it's possible that Jean could have unlocked those forgotten memories in MJ's mind, and she's sitting back in their spot, and she's holding the Black Dahlia necklace that Peter gave her in Far From Home. So kind of alluding to maybe MJ remembers again. Um, and then we get to where, again, Peter getting flowers. I like how they do the flower thing. They go through all the different seasons as he's taking flowers to Aunt May's grave. I think that's really touching. Again, really, I love the one thing I love about this movie is the way they deal with the emotions and the way they deal with setting things up in this movie. And they really do a good job of getting to you on that emotional level. So he sees Ned sitting there, and he goes over, introduces himself, and they do the handshake, and they're doing their old handshake, and then when they finish it, Ned looks up and says Peter, and that's where we leave that. I like where they're going with that. I think that was a cool way to leave that. So if he is, so it could, again, you could believe by that scene that Ned now is remembering who Peter is, and again, it's possible. Excuse me. It's possible that Gene did something or could have done something to unlock or set something up to unlock those memories. And that is, if there's anything I missed throughout this movie that was really awesome or really cool, please leave it in the comments section. Let me know. There was a lot of stuff to cover in this movie, but we are going to talk about the one thing I did want to talk about is the post-credit scene. And I know that I've seen a lot of stuff online and a lot of critique and a lot of criticisms of the post-credit scene. And when I saw it at first, it I had some different thoughts, some different things. But I think, and I could be wrong in this, again, comment and put a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. But the way there's two different things. There's two different possible ways I think that they went with this. Because so the post-credit scene, it is Ned's Spidey Tracker app, okay? And it shows Spider-Man in Queens. And then it pans and it goes and then it shows another Spider-Man location out in space. Now, my thought is that it could possibly be one of two things. Um, Obviously, we are on the road to Doomsday, so it could possibly be that there is, of course, Tom Holland Spider-Man there in Queens, and then we're seeing another Spider-Man, be it maybe perhaps in a multiverse, setting up Doomsday. Could it be Andrew Garfield Spider-Man? Could it possibly be Tobey Maguire Spider-Man? Um, that's what I think it could possibly be. As we again, we're just a few months away from Doomsday. They're setting up that post credit scene to get us ready for that. The other thing it could also possibly be is that because when we see the Spider-Man in Queens, when it pans away, they don't hold on that, image of Spider-Man in Queens. They cut across and then you see Spider-Man now out in space. It could very well also be that that is Tom Holland as well, and he started in Queens and something happened, and now he, through some kind of portal or through some kind of thing, he is now in this other multiversal area, which could possibly also be setting up Battle World for those that don't know, in the Doomsday saga. So for all the for the criticisms that the post credit scene got, people saying it was lackluster, it was kind of you have to keep this in mind. It's what it could be setting up, because when we get to, if this post credit scene sets up what I think it could in Doomsday, I think a lot of people are going to be retracting their criticisms and they're going to look at that post credit scene a lot differently. But that is my spoiler discussion thoughts, just some quick thoughts, some quick run throughs on Spider-Man Brand New Day. Again, I think this movie is absolutely fun. It's absolutely amazing. I am very impressed that this is now the fourth movie in the Tom Holland solo Spider-Man movies, and we get this epic and this amazing of a movie. Before I go, I want to talk about a couple other things here. Where do I rank Spider-Man Brand New Day? We talked about this on Super Cinema Bros, but where do I rank Spider-Man Brand New Day in the four Tom Holland movies? And I think that this is ranked number 2 for me. I still think No Way Home is the best one in the Tom Holland movies. I actually it's very close between this and Brand New Day. You could almost switch them as 1 and 2. But after I watched Brand New Day, I sat down and watched No Way Home. And when I did that, when I sat down and watched No Way Home, that was kind of the assurance for me where I went, yeah, uh, No Way Home is the better movie. And um, I don't know if I necessarily want to say it's the better movie as in what it delivered from a story perspective. Yes, I don't know. I think Brand New Day maybe edges it out as far as having a better story, but it's what No Way Home did. It's we talk about this with other movies, how when we get to sequels or certain things, when they take and they try to pack all these characters, when a movie tries to pack a whole bunch of characters in there and try to tell different arcs, try to tell different stories, and try to fit all these characters in with the plot, how it can get really jumbled and it can become a mess. And what No Way Home did was it gave all these characters something. It took all these characters and gave a really good story. And then of course it is hard to not place No Way Home as number 1 because of what it delivered to us with Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire. I mean, come on. Brand for as epic as Brand New Day is, one of the most iconic scenes in a comic book superhero movie. And one of the again, we talk about theater experiences. One of the hypest moments I've ever sat in a theater is when we get the three of them swinging and swinging off against each other and helping each other out, and they all hit the Spider-Man. They all hit their Spider-Man poses on a Statue of Liberty. Come on, that's really hard to beat. And again, the way that they gave it all those characters, their spaces in this movie, their times to shine in No Way Home, and the way it ended was very epic. And the way it ended, it hit you in an emotional place. And with the death of May, it again another one that really got to an emotional place with people. So you could almost interchange Brand New Day and No Way Home as number 1 and number 2. But for me, I have No Way Home as number 1. I have Brand New Day as number 2. I have Homecoming as number 3. And then I have Far From Home as number 4. Now, something else we brought up on Super Cinema Bros is where would we rank Brand New Day in all of the Spider-Man movies, from the Tobey Maguire movies to the Andrew Garfield movies, and of course, as we just talked about, the Tom Holland movies. Um, I would place this number 3. So I think that out of all the Spider-Man movies, I think the best one is still Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2. I still think Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie. And then I would have No Way Home as number 2, and then I'd have Brand New Day as number 3. And then for my fourth would be the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the 2002 Spider-Man. That would be my top 4 Spider-Man movies, but I want to know what your rankings are. Please leave them in the comments section. Let me know what you think. And then my final topic to this episode. And I was thinking about this, and again, this was another topic that we brought up on our show, Super Cinema Bros. And if you have not yet subscribed or checked out um, the show that I co-host alongside with the Big Rob Theory called Super Cinema Bros, you need to do that. You need to go like and subscribe. We got a lot of good episodes on there. We got a lot of good content for you. But one of the topics that I brought up is when you look at the box office numbers that Brand New Day has done, and you look at um, what Spider-Man has done in the box office, be it with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, when Spider-Man debuted, the Tom Holland Spider-Man debuted in Civil War, and with Infinity War and Endgame, and the box office numbers. Just take the Tom Holland ones alone, where we've got 1.92 billion, 1.71 billion, 1.13 billion, 880 million. And then you go to the Tobey Maguire movies, where they were all over 700 million in the box office, even the Andrew Garfield ones. And this is a question that I posed, is that could we say, because in comic book superheroes, and superheroes in general, your two biggest and most iconic superheroes are Batman and Superman. They are the two most known and most iconic superheroes in the world. And their symbols are two of the most iconic and well known. Like, even if you, for some reason, if you never followed superheroes in comic books, you know the Superman logo, you know the Batman logo, you know who they are. And I brought this up, and I said, would it be fair to say now, could we say now, with the overwhelming success that Spider-Man has had at the box office, even with the animated Spider-Verse movies, could we say that you could place Spider-Man up there alongside Batman and Superman as you could rank and put Spider-Man up there as in that same category as the most known and iconic superheroes? And the answer, I believe, to that is yes. And the box office numbers tell us that. This is if you think about it, this is the third live action iteration of Spider-Man. Okay. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, and the box office numbers dominate. And Spider-Man has done way better box office numbers than Superman, Batman. With all respect to those movies, the Batman and Superman movies, whether you like all of them or you don't, they are iconic movies. They are super iconic movies. But if you take all of them as a whole, Spider-Man has had the most successful run at the box office between, respectively, with Batman and Superman. And I just don't know. Like, I know we have coming up, for example, Superman, when the start of the DCU kicked off last year, Superman did over 600 million at the box office. Here's Spider-Man doing 1.71 billion 1 year later. Absolutely impressive. And we have the next big DCU movie coming up next year with the sequel for Superman, Man of Tomorrow. And for as epic as that may be, I don't know if that's going to top Spider-Man Brand New Day numbers. I don't know if that's going to be $1 billion movie. So I think it's very fair to say, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are with this. I think it's very fair to say that Spider-Man is right up there with Batman and Superman. And I would dare say, as far as a box office goes, Spider-Man's the biggest comic book superhero as far as box office draws go. But again, I want to know your thoughts, and that is going to do it for this episode, for my thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New day. Again, let me know what you think in the comments section. Once again, check this show out if you like my show, you like the content. YouTube, Spotify, hit the like, hit the subscribe. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Cine James Movie Talk. Please show me some love. I greatly appreciate all of your support. To let you know what is coming up next, what's coming up, we've got a lot of stuff ahead. This is going to be a very fun time over the next few months. The next episode is going to be my thoughts on my review on the end of Oak Street. I saw the trailers for that, a while back ago. I think that's going to be a fun movie, so can't wait to discuss that. It's going to be the end of Oak Street. That's going to be our next episode. And then coming up, we're going to have some fun here. This year is the 25th anniversary of the movie that started one of the biggest franchises in cinematic history. The first, the original, the pop culture. It was what really brought awareness to the car culture street racing scene, and that is the one and the only, the Fast and the Furious. They are bringing that back into theaters, and so I am going to be doing a little retrospective conversation on the Fast and the Furious. So we're going to have fun with that, and that's going to bring back a lot of memories for me during that hype time with the Fast and the Furious. We have the new anticipated switching gears into the DCU, the new animated movie Batman Nightfall, which was based off the popular comic book series from the 90s. That's a much anticipated movie. Can't wait to see that. That's coming up at the end of the month, and we are going to be discussing that. Of course, we are coming into my favorite time of year. It is here. Spooky season is here. Halloween is my favorite time of year. Absolutely love it. So we are going to have a fun time talking about many different horror movie franchises, and also coming up, and what better time during the spooky season to talk about none other than the 30th anniversary of one of the most iconic horror movies of all time, the one and only Wes Craven's Scream. We're going to be talking about that. So we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up, so make sure you don't miss it. Again, YouTube, Spotify, Cine James Movie Talk. Hit that like and hit that subscribe. Guys, that's going to do it. Thank you so much. And as always, you know what it is. I'll see you at the box office.